Hello friends, and welcome to my fish channel Aqua Habitat. And in today's video I'm going to share with you with certain tips which might help you to start off your own planted tank. So let's get started. Tank size and tank dimension are very important because it requires maintenance, and if you are very busy in your life, like you are working 13-14 hours a day, and you get a huge tank, let's say you get a 10-foot long tank, and most of the day you are busy, then no point, because you won't be able to devote time to your aquarium. So it's important that you understand the tank size should be such that it fits into your daily schedule, because trust me, at least initially for 3-4 months you will have to devote at least 1 to 2 hours of your day to your tank, otherwise it's pointless. One more thing to consider is if your job is a transferable job and it requires you to move from one place to another. Let's say 2 years you are posted in one place, after 2 or 3 years you are getting transferred to another place, then please don't go for a bigger tank, because trust me, it's a big pain in your ass to shift a fully cycled aquarium, especially a planted tank. So consider your daily schedule before selecting the aquarium size. Now let's talk about dimension. Dimension is also important because you see, light is a very important input for your plants, and you'll most of us are going to put carpeting plants, and if your tank is very high, light penetration will not be that effective, because you have a water column in between. The light will have to pass through the water column to reach up to the bottom level. So in my opinion, the ideal height or ideal tank height should not be more than 1.5 feet. It should be 1.5 feet tall. This particular tank is actually 2 feet tall because it was I originally designed this tank to keep discus, and later on I shifted this thing into a planted aquarium. Now let's come to the second requirement. It is nutrition. Well, nutrition is obviously important because nutrition is food. Like we need food, like we need nutrition. Your plants are living organisms, and they too require food and nutrition to survive and to thrive and grow. Now plants are unique than us. They're a bit different, and they're unique in the sense that they can absorb nutrients from two sources. Primarily, most of the plants absorb nutrition from the roots, and they are also capable of absorbing nutrients from the stomatal openings present in the underside of the leaves. So plants can absorb nutrition from the leaves as well as roots, but primarily most of the plants heavily depend upon the root system to absorb nutrients. Like if you cut the roots of the plants, and just because your plants can absorb nutrition from the leaves doesn't mean the plant is going to survive. If you remove the roots, if you just nip off the roots, if you scissor off the roots and you put it in your aquarium thinking it is going to absorb nutrients from the leaves, it is not going to happen, because with most of the plants, because 60 to 70% of the nutrient that the plant absorbs is through the roots, and roots get the nutrition, will collect the nutrition from the substrate. So providing a good quality substrate for your planted aquarium is very important, because your roots are going to take in nutrients from the substrate or soil that you are using. So a good quality soil or substrate is a must. Now, it's very common in the hobby, and we have seen most of the people doing, and even we have done it, people use sand. Sand or pool sand is a very common substrate for a community fish tank or even discus fish tanks. But a sandy substrate is not a good option for a planted aquarium. Now let me try to explain why. Sand cannot hold on to nutrients. It is basically it is basically neutral in its charge. That means it's an inert element. So sand is an inert substrate. It cannot hold on to the positively charged nutrient atoms. So a sand will be like devoid of any form of nutrients, and so that's why it is useless for your plants. The substrate that you select should be something which is not inert. It should have a high cation exchange capacity. Now what cation exchange capacity is, I will explain maybe in another video. Here I'm not going to make this video too complex and too scientific that you run away. My intention is not to scare you out. But what happens, let me tell you. Most of the organic soils or soil that we consider as fertile are high in cation exchange capacity, which is known as CEC. Simply let me tell you what it is. Like the particles of a soil or substrates are negatively charged, and they will attract the positively charged atoms or nutrients. So it will attract the nutrients and hold on to it. Whereas sand, which is inert, it does not have any charge, so it won't be able to hold on to your nutrients. Plus, a good substrate and a good soil will also harbor good population of bacteria. Bacteria are also as important as nutrients, because your plants does not have an intestinal system like we do. They don't have a gut system. We have got a lot of bacteria, good bacteria, various colonies of good bacteria living and thriving inside our intestines. And what they do is they help us digest the food. They break down the food into individual nutrients which your body will absorb. Same way, you can consider the substrate as being the intestines for your tank, for your plants, because it's the soil which will harbor the bacteria. The bacteria are going to feed on the nutrients and convert those nutrients into available form for the plants, and then its roots are going to absorb those nutrients. The second way the plants absorb nutrients is through, as I already told, through the leaves, stomatal openings present in the leaves. So it is important that you dose regularly nutrients in your water column. Now only when you have a good substrate, good organic fertile substrate, and on top of it you are dosing nutrients, will your plants be happy. There are several substrates, pre-mixed substrates available in the market, specially designed for planted tanks. There are a whole lot of substrates nowadays available. Most of the people consider ADA substrates to be the best. Like in this tank I've used ADA Amazonia, and it is good. Like for 2 years it's lasting me, and I'm pretty sure it will last me for maybe another 2 years. So 4 years it is going to last. So it's a pre-mixed, getting a pre-mixed substrate for your planted tank is hassle free. First of all, you just have to purchase it and add it to your tank. Now second method which people consider, or people term it as a dirted tank. What dirted tank is, you are doing it yourself. It's not something that you're purchasing a pre-mixed substrate from the market which is designed primarily for your planted tanks, but you are creating your own substrate, and which turns out to be much cheaper. So what you will do is you are going to purchase, you will get a bag of potting mixture. You will purchase it from your normal nursery and you're going to add it to your aquarium. That also works, but you need to know a bit of tweaks. You need to prepare the soil before you add into your aquarium. There's another method which is much more, I would say, do it yourself, and a bit complex, because here all the components that you are adding, actually you are the one who will be making your soil in this method. Like you'll be collecting your garden soil, mixing it with laterite soil for iron, and you'll also be mixing some vermicompost. Then you're going to roast it, and then you're going to add it to your aquarium. There are several recipes for DIY dirted soil. You can check the internet. But the problem with DIY substrate is, like, whenever you're going to find, in the beginning it is full of nutrients, you are sure about it, you have added the nutrients, and then you will add the water. Now you will have to understand the premixed formulas, like the soil specifically designed for planted tanks, will have a slow releasing effect. It is not, the moment you add the water, it is not going to release the entire nutrients present in it into the water. But whenever you are doing in a DIY method, there is no guarantee that the soil that you have prepared, or the organic soil that you have purchased from your local nursery, will release the nutrients slowly into the water column. Because mind you, the soil will be inside your water and it will dissolve. All your nutrients might get dissolved into the water, and that will create a lot of havocs. First of all, when you will be planting your plants, there won't be much of nutrients available in the soil, and secondly, it will cause a huge algae bloom, because now your water column is full of excess nutrients which came out of your substrate, and it will grow these horrible various sorts of algae into your tank, and it will frustrate you, and which is not a good thing at all. So selecting a substrate is important, because substrate provides most of the nutrients. Second thing is nutrient dosing in your water column. There also you have several options to choose from. Like there are planted nutrients or fertilizers specially designed for planted tanks, or you can also do it in a do-it-yourself method. There are several recipes for that too. You can search for something called EI method, or estimative index method, which was developed by Tom Barr. But you'll have to get the raw materials from a chemist's shop, and depending upon your country, in some countries it might not be legal to get certain kind of chemicals for your DIY fertilizer. So to be safe and to be hassle-free, you can directly purchase the fertilizers or liquid fertilizers specifically designed for your planted tanks. There are many, like the ADA ones. Aquadesign Amano has got a whole range of liquid fertilizers. Same way, CCAM has got its Flourish line of fertilizers. I'm currently using the Flourish line of nutrients by CCAM, and I am dosing like nitrogen, potash, trace, and iron. Now nutrients primarily, just like us, we have macros and micros. Like for us, the macro nutrients will be like fats, carbohydrates, and proteins, and we also need trace, so microelements. Similarly, for your plants also needs basically 3 macroelements, which are potassium, nitrogen, and phosphates. Plus they will need iron and trace elements. So if you ask me, you have to select what you are going to dose in your aquarium. For me, the important will be nitrogen to begin with. Nitrogen, potassium. Phosphates you can ignore, iron and trace. So nitrogen, potassium, trace and iron. These are the 4 liquid fertilizers that you can initially choose for your planted tank, and you will have to stick to a schedule. You'll have to dose it regularly. So how to dose, how much to dose, it is written on the bottles. If you purchase the premixed formulas, you'll have the doses written there. Plus if you decide to do it yourself, then also you'll get the dosage. You can search it on the internet and they will tell you how much to go, how much nutrients you'll be adding, how much nutrients will go into how much gallons of tank. Now to sum up the nutrient parts, you have understood that plants like us also need macronutrients and micronutrients. Macronutrients for plants will be, the important macronutrients will be potassium, nitrogen, phosphates, and it is important that these nutrients are available in your aquarium. Plus they will also need micronutrients or trace elements along with iron. And how the plants absorb nutrients is from the substrate and also from the water column through the leaves. So providing a nutrient rich and a substrate which will release the nutrients slowly is very important. A good substrate is very important, along with regular dosing of liquid fertilizers. Now, a good substrate and regular dosing of fertilizers or nutrients will ensure that your plants are getting all the nutrients they need to grow. Now let's come to the third important requirement of your plants, and that is of course light. For plants, light, providing the right kind of light is very, very important, because light is a power source for your plants. You can consider lights as the batteries for your plants. Without lights, it will not survive at all, because just like we respire, respiration is our process. They depend upon a process called, your plants depend upon a process called photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is where they convert the nutrients. Photosynthesis is a process through which they will use the nutrients, and to do that they require light. With the help of light and carbon, they're going to synthesize the nutrients and grow. If you don't provide them light, then they will not survive. It's a power, they require that power source. Now you just can't add any kind of light into a planted tank. For lighting, you'll have to consider, for lighting your planted tank, you'll have to consider the amount of light that you are going to put in, plus the spectrum or the kind of light that you are going to put in. Now let's talk about how much amount of light you need to put into your tank. There are several methods to judge that. There is watts per gallon theory, which is an old one but still relevant. Then there is PAR. So then there is something called PAR. PAR is like photosynthetically active radiation available, and PAR is, I think, photosynthetically usable radiation available for your plants. But for a beginner or a normal hobbyist like me, measuring PAR and PAR inside a tank is difficult. So we'll go by wattage per gallon. So for a planted aquarium, you need at least, for a good thriving planted aquarium, you need at least 2 to 2.5 watts per gallon. If you have a 50-gallon tank, then multiply 50 by 2.5. So around a 50-gallon tank should ideally have around 125 to 150 watts of light in it. Wattage will of course be written in the light itself, whatever form of light you are purchasing, whether it's a CFL or it's a high output T5 lighting or LEDs. It will always be mentioned in the unit how much wattage it is. Now, as you have figured out how much wattage of light you're going to provide in your aquarium, second important thing is the spectrum of light. See, there are various spectrums. Like you will find lights which are a bit yellowish, then you will also find light which are considered as daylight, and ethnic lights like bluish kind of light. So the color varies because they are of various Kelvin ratings. So choose a light which falls in between a Kelvin rating of maybe 6500 to 7500 Kelvin rating. You will get light with 6500 Kelvin rating very easily from any shop, whether it's CFL, whether it's T5s or LEDs. So get a light which has a Kelvin rating of 6500 and put adequate amount of that light in your aquarium, and which will help you to grow most of the plants. You can also go with lights which are again specifically designed and made for your planted tanks, but those will be expensive ones. And if you are starting off, you don't want to spend too much of money on lighting, then you can go for CFLs, LEDs, like LED floodlights. In this aquarium I'm using LED floodlights. You can go with T5 high outputs, or even metal halides, but metal halides release too much of heat, so that might not be good for your aquarium. I would suggest go for T5s or LED floodlights. But only thing to consider is make sure the light that you are purchasing for your planted tank has a Kelvin rating of 6500 to 7000. 6500 Kelvin rating lights you will easily get in any shop. So procuring a light with 6500 Kelvin will not be a problem. Don't go for Kelvin rating anything below 5000. You know, it should be above 5000 and up to 7000. So don't go below 5000 and it is not going to work. Trust me, it is not going to work for your plants. And the second important thing is the amount of light you're going to put in your planted tank. Go by the thumb rule of 2.5 watts per gallon of water, and if you take care of these two things, the wattage and the Kelvin rating of your lights, then I think you are good to go. Now there is one more addition which is also important, but you can go with it maybe in a bit later, let's say 2 or 3 months into the hobby, then you can get it, which is dosing carbon dioxide. You see, terrestrial plants like outside in the atmosphere, the concentration of carbon dioxide is very high, around 300 parts per million. But inside your aquarium tank it will be very low, and carbon is a very important input for your plants. And there are some plants, which are which are not easy to grow. For them, providing carbon dioxide or carbon is mandatory. In this aquarium, there are again several methods how you're going to pump in carbon dioxide in your aquarium. You can get liquid carbon are also available, but on the long run they might become costly. But if you have a small tank, let's say 1 cubic feet aquarium, then it's okay, or maybe a smaller tank. But dosing liquid carbon in a larger tank, let's say 50 gallon or 70 gallon tank, and dosing it might get a bit costly. So it's better you shift to something which is called pressurized CO2 system. Like in this tank, I'm using a pressurized CO2 system. Like this is the cylinder. This is a 3.5 liter cylinder, and this lasts me for about 6 months easily. And the amount of dosing the amount that I'm dosing is through a what you call diffuser, and I'm putting it. I've tweaked it at 2 bubbles per second. You can also, there is a do-it-yourself method also. There are recipes in the internet. You'll get it there, like using citric acid and baking soda and stuff. That also works, but it's not those kind of DIY carbon dioxide system is a bit, it has a lot of hassles. First of all, it's not consistent, and in long run again that becomes costlier than getting a pressurized CO2 system. So I'll always suggest, if not in the first phase, at least later on you should invest on a pressurized CO2. Now let's sum it up. Get a right sized tank for you which fits in to your daily routine, daily schedule. Second, provide nutrition to your plants by adding a good substrate and regular dosing of liquid fertilizers. Third, good lighting, proper amount of light and right kind of light, plus maybe a bit later add pressurized carbon dioxide into your tank, and trust me, you are good to go. You'll be able to grow most of the plants in your planted aquarium. Thank you for watching this video, and please don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you.